Now, I don't want to speak for everyone, but personally, 2024 has been kinda a slow year for anime so far. Not to say it's been particularly bad, but there were only a few shows each season that I was interested in, and even then, some of them ended up being alright at best. The winter was decent, as I enjoyed Mashal, which of course gave us that banger of an opening, and I was also glad to get another season of Tomzaki-kun. The big show of that season was definitely Solo Leveling, and while that was enjoyable enough, I wouldn't say it blew me away. Somewhere in between there was Ninja Kamui, but don't get me started on that generational fall off. The spring had Mushoku Tensei, which was amazing as usual, but Kaiju number 8 kinda left me with a similar feeling to Solo Leveling. I watched them to completion, but I found it hard to get super invested in either of them, which was especially unfortunate as Kaiju number 8 was supposed to be one of the big up and coming jump shows, but thankfully the fall season has that covered, which we'll get to. From the summer, the main show I was watching was Oshinoko, which I actually thought had quite a strong season. If you want to see more of my thoughts on it, I actually made a video on it a couple of weeks ago. Go check that out. I watched a few other shows, but none of them were on any crazy level. I know stuff like new seasons of Demon Slayer and Slime also came out this year, but I couldn't bring myself to watch a training arc or a yapping simulator week to week. I'll definitely get around to binging those though. Anyway, all of this is to say, despite the somewhat slow year so far, I was never actually worried for 2024 because I knew the fall season was stocking up to bring the heat. This season has started with a bang, and I couldn't help but show my appreciation by discussing some of my favorite shows so far, and that's exactly what I'll be doing in this video. And what better way to start than with arguably the most anticipated show of the year, Dandadan. Or at least, that's what I would have said if I wasn't fortunate enough to see Dandadan First Encounter in theaters a few weeks before the season started. In that screening, I was able to watch the first 3 episodes of the anime before it aired, and I actually made a video about my thoughts on it, spoiler free, so check that out if you're curious about what I think. With that out of the way though, let's get into another Shonen Jump series, and probably the most anticipated romance of this year, Blue Box. Now let me get this out of the way early, because I just want to say that I am a manga reader for Blue Box, but I will not spoil anything, so don't worry about that. These are just some of my general thoughts on the anime so far, and I want to start by saying, the voice acting is really good. Like, I've been genuinely impressed, and Kyo is exactly like how I imagined in the manga. Like, it's almost scary how accurate it is to how I pictured it, so that's amazing casting from the cast director. And for the general direction, I think the direction actually has been surprisingly cool at times. For a romance show, generally I'm not expecting that much from romance shows in terms of direction, even though I think some of the best romance shows, the direction is what sets it apart. Because, there's only so much you can do without action, and that's why a lot of directors usually make their name. But in this show, I actually thought there was a super cool scene, like when Taiki is running after he finds out that Chinatsu is moving in with him. I thought that was super interestingly directed, so I'll give the director props on that one. But overall, I thought the first episode was really solid, and they got my guy's official Hige Dandism on the OP. That opening's a banger. I like that a lot. Well, not even a banger, more of a bop. But either way, I think it's really good. I think they have Eve on the ending too, and I like that as well. So generally, they're pulling out all the stops for the show, and I appreciate that as someone who's a fan of the manga. Episode 2 gets into more of the shenanigans of the premise, the main duo actually living together, and how this will affect their school lives. It's a classic romance misunderstanding situation, but this is an early indicator of how refreshing Blue Box can be, as this situation is cleared up by the end of the episode, and I really appreciate that about Blue Box. Something like this and a lot of other romance, manga, and anime, that misunderstanding between Hina, Taiki, and Chinatsu would drag on, and you won't see Chinatsu talking to Taiki for a while. And things like that, it's just not realistic. So, I really appreciate that Taiki just went out of his way, let's just clear this up, and then you just see them get right back to it. And I really appreciate that about the show. But we also get to see the natural chemistry that they have together, especially with the charm scene. There's something about them that clicks already, and I really appreciate how well they've started to build that up this early on. So it's going to be fun to see how that develops over the course of the anime. And it'll also be interesting to follow how both Kyo and Hina will affect his relationship with Chinatsu and the way they meddle or give advice. So keep an eye on that, and we'll see how that goes. I will say though, the one iffy thing I would say is there are some scenes that are kind of shaky animation wise, but I get that they're trying their best to cover those massive sprawling gym scenes when you have all these students playing all these different sports in the same gymnasium. Understandably, they're using some CG for that. It doesn't look the best, if I'm being honest, but it's not really taking away from the show in any major way. So that's just, I wanted to point that out. I gotta be honest about it, but it's nothing crazy. What is crazy though is the return of Re:Zero. I have been anticipating Re:Zero's return for so long, and I'm glad to have it back. The 90-minute premiere is just a baller move. Re:Zero is one of the few shows that's consistently flexible with their runtime. If you watch the first 2 seasons, especially season 2, you'll know that. So I just love that because it shows that the team is really passionate about it. And I'll be curious to see if you have episodes that run longer this season. We already have episodes where they're not playing the OP. Like, it just, I really appreciate how much they are willing to give time to the actual story and content of the series. So we'll see how that continues. But generally, the premiere was amazing. It was mostly chill vibes, post 1 year time skip, and we get to meet a lot of the old characters again. So for like 90% of the episode, there's not much crazy going on. It's building up a lot of the political intrigue, but mostly it's just people reconnecting after a long time not seeing each other, which is a good way to naturally weave in some recap, because you see Subaru getting his props from these other parties that haven't seen him in a while, and they're referencing things that happened in the past 2 seasons. Some things I kind of forgot about, I'm not gonna lie, because I did not rewatch the last 2 seasons before this season. So that was a really clever way just to weave in some recap, but it's also natural. It's not just some random exposition. So that's super well done. That also, I do want to mention, now that happened, it only really now sank in for me how little time has passed during the first 2 seasons of the anime, because so much went down and happened for Subaru from his perspective. But because of Return by Death, it really has only been like 2 to 3 months, the first 2 seasons, and now we have the year time skip, so I guess it's a year and 2 to 3 months since the show started. It's not really that long compared to, considering most of it was off screen now with the time skip. It feels a lot longer, but it really wasn't that long. So that's something I'm actually keeping in mind as I move forward with the show. But episode 2 was just a straight banger, just a ton of action, which, if you know, Re:Zero isn't the most action-packed series out there. So this episode having this much action was actually super refreshing, and you had characters just straight throwing hands. Someone like Reinhardt, who's just OP. You see him put in that work, and then you see Emilia at the end fighting against Sirius Romane Conti. Speaking of Sirius Romane Conti, at the end of the first episode, after that mostly chill episode, it lulled you to a sense of security. That ending to the first episode gripped me right back in. Grippy, no J. Cole, but it gripped me right back in, and I was locked in again. I was like, oh yeah, Re:Zero is that show. Bring me episode 2. And in episode 2, we see the hand. So it's been really beautifully executed so far. And the second episode also gets into some of my favorite aspects of Re:Zero, which are the strategic aspects of Subaru's trial and error with each death. That's something I actually find really fascinating, seeing which route he takes. Okay, that didn't work. I'm dead now. Let's run it back. Okay, this time I'm going this way. So this episode we see he tries Reinhardt. OP, obviously. Hopefully that should work. That didn't work. That had its own issues. So the next time he goes the Emilia route, and then we're going to see how this plays out. So I really find that interesting about the show and trying out all these different hypotheticals. Well, I say hypotheticals, easy for me to say it, but Subaru is actually experiencing those deaths, so it's tough for him. But you also get to see the results of the growth that these characters went through in season 2. Like Emilia stepping up to stand beside Subaru as an equal to go face Sirius Romane Conti. I really like that, and it's a direct result, direct character development. We get to see that through line from the last season. I appreciate things like that. And for issues, honestly, I've had no issues with it so far. Re:Zero's living up to its standard. Hopefully it continues this way for the rest of the season. I think it's only 16 episodes, if I'm not mistaken, at least this core. And obviously we had the 90-minute premiere, so it ends up running a little longer than that. But then I think there's going to be a second core, maybe a few seasons down the line. So we're in for a lot of ReZero over the next year or so, and I'm very excited about that. But generally, those are the main shows I'm watching right now. I still need to check out Dragon Ball Daima, the new season of Blue Lock, and the new season of Shangri-La Frontier. I'm not sure if I'll make videos on them, but let me know if you'd be interested in that. All in all though, this season is truly stacked, and I'm hoping that all these shows can maintain their quality. But that's enough waffling. Thanks for watching, especially if you made it this far. Let me know in the comments, are you watching Dandadan, Blue Lock, or ReZero? If so, what are your thoughts so far? Also, let me know what else you're watching, especially if you think there are shows that I should check out. Let me know, I'm always down to check some other stuff out and maybe make a video about it. But if you have even 5 seconds to spare, it'd help a lot if you liked, subscribed, and all that other good stuff. There should be a new video out same time next week. See ya.